it's a vibration in the end. So sound is vibration, color is vibration, sense, like if you think of, how does food smell or essential oils, it's all a form of vibration. And then if you go deeper, if you think about frequencies, certain frequencies are more nurturing for the body.
Welcome to the Healing Cocoon. I'm Jacoby Gray, soul alignment and success coach and energy healer, which means I can intuit the subtle layers of your energy field to promote ultimate health and well-being. My goal for this podcast is to shed light on the healing journey itself and help you feel more supported as you embark on the process of unpacking your past to consciously create your present and start living the life of your dreams. Through the study of coaching, kinesiology, holographic kinetics, meditation, Reiki, the chakra system, and many other modalities, I've learned how to release the blocks that were holding me back. Now I'd love to help you do the same. By embarking on your own self-healing process, you'll see the world transforming around you in ways you never thought possible. You'll begin to experience more connection, clarity, love, fulfillment, synchronicity, and success than you've ever had before. So welcome to the Ascension. Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome back to the Healing Cocoon podcast for yet another week. Today we're speaking with Michelle Berc, who is one of LA's best known sound healers. She is a phenomenal woman with over 15 years of experience in the sound healing space. And you're going to discover through listening to this episode that her journey was a very organic one. She started out as an artist and moved into sound healing very organically, was originally hosting art events that ultimately led to her hosting her incredible sound healing events that she does now. And I've been to several of Michelle's sound baths, and I think the first one I went to was quite a small one above Parachute in Venice on Rose Avenue. And I remember at some point during the sound bath, someone put something on my chest and it vibrated through my entire body. And I felt like it must have been, I didn't know what it was, but it felt like it was quite a large thing that was being placed on my chest. And at the end, when I asked Michelle what that was, she said it was a tuning fork. And a tuning fork is something that has a very, very small circumference as a base and like a tiny stick, but it's a metal rod. But that was what was on my chest, causing me to feel this expansive vibration. And I went and bought one immediately. And over the years, I have bought many for my friends. She has a tuning fork that is attuned to the sound or the frequency of Om, the vibration of Om. And if you're interested at all in learning what that is, you can go onto her website. All her details will be in the show notes for the episode. But Michelle is the founder of Sonic Being, and she's been sharing sound healing across Southern California, as I said, for close to 15 years. She's certified in sound healing, vibrational sound therapy, breathwork, and is a heart math practitioner. Her sessions range from privates to group sound baths and breathwork classes, along with participating in corporate wellness programs and celebrity gatherings. She also performs large sound meditation experiences with a full team and special guest musicians. Michelle launched the Sonic Being Sound Healing Training Program in late 2018 and has successfully passed along her knowledge and sound and vibrational healing over the last few years. And I have been a very grateful recipient of her knowledge. She curated my set of sound bowls, which you'll see on Instagram, on the Urban Ascension Instagram. I'm playing all these beautiful sound bowls, which she curated for me. Michelle has such an incredible ear for sound, as you will discover as you listen to this. So please enjoy today's episode and jump online and rate, subscribe, review, do all the things. You know what they are, because that really helps the show. And sit back and relax.
So I used to be in the art world, and I would produce these big art events. And I was all about supporting emerging artists. I was an artist myself, and really intrigued with um, how to express energy, make energy tangible, which is what art is. We're working with color and textures and objects to express our emotions. And I was already fascinated with this concept. And a neighbor of mine was deep into some Buddhist chanting and would invite me over um, to chant with her group. So I would kind of dive in with her, and I thought it was really beautiful. It's a really beautiful religion. But as we're chanting, I would always walk out of there feeling just amazing, like a whole new person than how I was when I walked in. So my inquisitive mind got me going to the bookstore looking for books on vocal toning and chanting. And next on the bookshelf next to that book was all these other books on sound healing. And I'm like, sound healing, what is this? Is this actually a thing? So I grabbed a couple books, started reading them, and it was absolutely fascinating to me. And I just kept running back to the bookstore, grabbing another book. There's some other ones like This Is Your Brain on Music, and from the music side to the spiritual side to the science side. And lo and behold, a couple months later, there was a sound healing conference. I think it was one of the only ones, or the only time that they had it here in LA. So of course, I signed up, and I don't know, it was about 4 days of nonstop workshops of all different types of sound healing, some of the top researchers and facilitators in the world. And this is before it became a thing, like sound baths weren't even a thing yet. And that's where I heard my crystal bowls, or I heard the crystal bowls for the first time and bought some. um, and I slapped it on a credit card. I bought a whole set of crystal bowls and some alchemy bowls and threw them in the back seat like they were my new kids, and put the seatbelts around the boxes and got them home safe. And I was still in the art world and kind of dabbling in sound healing. It was like my little secret practice. And literally, like, I think it was when my dad passed away is when I pulled the trigger on signing up for a proper training. And instead of the self-studies, taking it further, and did my first training. I was still in the art world maybe for another year, and maybe a year or two actually. And I would we put on these big art shows, and I would come into the galleries and bless the galleries with sound, and do these. I started integrating some opening meditations with the artists before we stepped into a show, and just kind of developing this my own little practice with it all. And friends would invite me over, and we would do little sound baths in their living rooms, and little sound bath dinner parties. And at the time, I was still figuring out what I was doing with it, and it was just the crystal bowls, and trying to explain like why it's so powerful, and people just saying, do more, we love this. And did a couple more trainings, and started producing my own events, and bringing in some support, some assistance, some guest musicians, started purchasing more instruments, growing I have a crazy instrument collection at this point, but exploring all the instruments. There was the tuning forks, which you experience, which is, I think that was my first instrument. Let me circle back to that. That was the first thing I bought. And then it was the crystal bowls. And the tuning forks are so easy. You throw them in your bag, and they're easy to share with people. And when I used to go to Burning Man, I would have a tuning fork in my bag when I was cruising around, and I would share that with people. I'm like, you want a hit? I'm like, give them a little hit of the Om vibration, and give them a little mini tuning fork treatment. It was just my little gift to the people I would cross paths with. And that was a lot of fun, just connecting with people vibrationally. And I don't know if I went off tangent there. I'm telling you my whole story here.
No, it's amazing.
But yeah, so I started producing the events more officially, and then meditation studios started popping up. That wasn't even a thing yet, because it used to be just the yoga studios, and then finally now there's meditation, and even like mixed like self-discovery studios that combine all these different modalities for people. But started doing stuff at yoga studios and meditation studios, and then eventually people are asking for a training from me. They really liked how I was holding the sessions. So I created a training and started sharing what I call the sonic being method. So that's where we're at today. And I'm now growing that side of me. So, yeah, it's
Wow, what a beautiful and organic journey. Like it feels like it just unfolded for you.
yeah. And I eventually had to say goodbye to the art world. It was a hard, very hard decision. I For 15 years, I grew in a nonprofit arts organization supporting emerging artists, working with at-risk youth. But the nonprofit world has its pros and cons, and the sound healing just kept opening up, and I have ran with it. I really enjoyed it. I still bring people together around meaningful. Still a meaningful gathering for people, where it used to be art and now it's sound meditation and healing.
It sounds like you've always been a facilitator of community, just in different ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and something I found interesting when you first started describing your work in the art world, you talked about art as energy, whether it was colors or objects. Back then, did you see it as energy? Did you understand the concept of energy, or is that something that came into your awareness as you stepped into the Buddhist chanting and then finding the books and then experiencing the sound healing?
I think back then it was really about expression, expressing our emotions. And then also this concept of there's there's a couple things I'm going to kind of unfold answering that question. As an artist, when you're creating, you are creating from your emotional body. There's a skill set of like how your techniques, your artistry, but then there's the vision of what you're drawing on the paper, or the feeling, the emotions that is coming out of you as an artist. And creating art is healing. And then as the spectator, if you're going to an art show or a museum, when you're observing art, that is a form of meditation. You're sitting there and becoming completely present with what is on the canvas in front of you. Or if it's an art installation or an interactive experience, you have to become completely present with this artistic thing in front of you. And it's going to pull things out of you as well. So I think creating art and observing art is a form of meditation. So I think the sound healing was just, let's get down to the core of it. And it's vibration in the end. So sound is vibration, color is vibration, sense, like if you think of, how does food smell or essential oils, it's all a form of vibration. And then if you go deeper, if you think about frequencies, certain frequencies are more nurturing for the body versus others. And then sounds interact with our brain and with our body energetically, and that's where I got really deep into it.
And so, as you got deeper and deeper into understanding the frequencies and experiencing them, did you find that you went through a type of purging of yourself on a psychological level and emotional level? Could you tell us a little bit about, I guess, how you expanded as a human in alignment with your sound healing journey expanding?
Yeah, so absolutely. We're constantly growing and evolving, and everything I learn, I want to share it with others, because if it's helped me, I know it's going to help somebody else. And as from a young child, I was always very sensitive to sound. I don't talk about this very often, but I was born with an eyesight issue. I don't see the world like everybody else. And I think that cultivated my sense of hearing, to be more powerful than most. And so I've always been impacted by music and sound, but I didn't quite understand it. It's not even just music and sound, it's actually people's vibration, if they're angry or happy, and how that has affected me. And I never understood it until later in life, that I was an empath, and I was picking up other people's energy. And eventually I had to do my own self-healing and understand, what am I feeling, when is enough, when have I absorbed too much, how can I cleanse and rebalance myself, learn about self-regulation. So not only do I do sound healing, I trained in with breath work, And I also learned about heart math. And now my sessions kind of combine all three. And I think it's really starting to become more self-aware is really important for everybody to understand this vessel and how we're interacting with the world. How is energy influencing us, impacting us, and how can we learn how to self-regulate through self-awareness and using sound. Like you can go to a sound bath and there's all these amazing instruments creating all these sounds and vibrations, but also your voice. And not even just your voice, there's different types of sounds we can make that can help clear energy or balance your body. And so it was just really fascinating for me to understand this vessel. You know, I always say this, we're a musical instrument. We fall in and out of tune, and our voice is the most powerful instrument or tool that we have to balance the body. And not everyone is used to using their voice. And even me, like I'm not a singer, but I'll tone. I love vocal toning to balance the body, and it relaxes the mind. And so,
I never thought about that as the voice. Um, like you, I've had to go on a journey of understanding my own energy and how to create a boundary with that. And so I've used a lot of different tools and I have my own toolkit, but I don't think it ever occurred to me that my own voice is the most powerful tool I have to balance my energy.
yeah, voice and breath. Yeah, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen people, they're breathing, but there's like blocked energy. They're not fully breathing into their belly and opening up that heart and filling up those lungs. Some people aren't exhaling properly and they're holding energy in. So I can look at somebody and scan how they're breathing, how energy is moving in and out of their body through their breath. And I can see what's going on. And I mean, I have to turn it off sometimes, you know, but if I'm in a healing session, I'm scanning somebody and I'm like, where I can feel people's blocks. I'm like a conduit of their vibrational energy. So that's another thing I had to learn if we, step back to, me discovering that, oh, I'm an empath and this is everything I'm feeling. Learning how to set boundaries and protect myself, and then also step into my gifts when I need to use them, whether it is for myself or for others.
I'm interrupting this awesome chat to quickly tell you all about the free meditation I've created for peace, presence, and empowerment. It kind of sounds like a big promise, but when you break it down, a sense of inner peace comes from being present because you're not feeling anxious about the past or worried about the future. You're simply with this moment here, right now. And empowerment is also a byproduct of presence because what's the one similarity you notice about the people in your life who have the confidence to ask for what they need and want, not in a pushy or narcissistic way, but in a way that feels genuine, clear, and unattached to the outcome of their ask, which ultimately then makes you more receptive to fulfilling their needs and wants. That's true empowerment. And that one similarity that all those people have in common is presence. So, this meditation is designed to give you a repeatable experience of presence so that you can begin integrating those feelings of peace and empowerment into your everyday life. I'd love for you to try it out, ideally 2 to 3 times a week for a month. I know it's a commitment, but you've got this. And let me know what starts shifting for you once you do. So pop onto our website, thehealingcocoon.co, that's C-O, not .com, and download your free audio track right now. So when you're doing the breath work, and you're working with someone who's having a really emotional experience, how do you hold space for that and make that person feel safe?
Before I start a session, I always encourage my clients to use their voice, and whatever they're feeling, just drop into it and give that emotion, that feeling, a sound. And it doesn't matter what it sounds like, just let it sound. And I like to say, they're speaking your truth and then they're sounding your truth. So sometimes we can't find the words, but we can find the sounds to express ourselves. So make the sounds. If you need to cry, cry, let it out. This is your time to release. And it's all a form of release. If we're not releasing, then it's just building up and building up, and our cup will just be over, it'll be overflowing. And if you're overflowing all the time, you can't receive. So we have to empty ourselves out in order to receive, whether they're good or bad experiences, all everything in between. If our cup is too full, then we can't experience life in the best way possible.
So, how often are you doing breath work as a part of your own self care practice?
It comes in waves depending on what's going on in my life. I I'll do it a bunch. Like, maybe there'll be in a month's time, I might do it weekly or twice a week, and then I may not do it for a month or so. And then when I feel that it's time for me to do some work on myself, then I'm called to do it. So, and I think that's important as people who are holding healing space for others, to make sure that they take a break and work on themselves in between and know when their cup is full. So, but breath work is really powerful. It is able to take you to an altered state, similar to plant medicine, without having to drink a substance that you may not feel comfortable with. But I think breath and sound combining the two is pretty amazing.
Very, very powerful experience. Could we segue just a little bit into the heart math? Because I'm really curious about that. I've heard of the Heart Math Institute and I know of their YouTube channel, but I didn't realize that was something that you could actually train in. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so several years ago, I did their practitioner training. And for those who are not familiar with heart math, it is a software. It's a biofeedback software, and it measures your heart rate variance. And what that is the space between each heartbeat. And the technology, you're able to you measure their heart rate variance, and you can see if somebody has anxiety or depression, or if they're in, we call it coherence. And the waves on the graph, if you're in a peaceful, meditative, or in flow state where you're thinking clearly and you're feeling good, the graph is going to show a nice wave that's like this. It's just up and down, and very balanced. But if you have anger and anxiety, we can see on the graph in real time, it's kind of jaggedy, moving up and down. And there are some characteristics. They're kind of like sound waves, really, that the software is producing. So heart math is a way to help people become more self-aware and learn about self-regulation. And what's great about it is that it makes it visible. It makes energy tangible and visible for people. So if your
I
anxiety,
love that. Yes.
yeah, so it's really cool. And if you're working with a practitioner, you can get deep into figuring out what the triggers are, and you start learning, you start changing your behavior patterns. But it takes time. It takes, usually it's about 6 weeks to really hone in on changing your behavior pattern using heart math techniques.
Okay, so it's not just a diagnostic tool, there's a system
Right.
of applications or exercises that will help you then
Exactly.
adjust that.
Yeah, so it's almost like a therapy session, but it's slightly different, and you're given takeaways. So each week, you'll go into real life, and if you're triggered, you're going to be given techniques to balance yourself out, and you just start becoming more and more self-aware, and you start changing those behavior patterns. And I
Oh,
take
that's
it,
really cool.
and I take it one step further, because now I'm combining my sound into
I was
the
just about to
session.
ask you, do
So
you use it as a diagnosis and then help the sound to support the tools that the
yeah.
heart math tools?
So I have these ways of, once we know what's going on in the brain, and just energetically, now we can pinpoint maybe which chakra center that anxiety might be. I call it vibrational imprints, where it is in the body, and we can use vocal toning techniques and tapping, like kind of like EFT tapping, which is emotional freedom technique. You're just tapping on the body. You can make sounds. Just you're basically um, changing that vibrational imprint that's stored in the physical vessel. That's where it's all stored, in our cells and our organs, in the chakra, and the organs in each chakra. And for those who are new to the chakras, or like, is this real? This is another way through all these different modalities, we can make the chakras more tangible. So, and that's something I do in my sessions before we lay down and receive a whole sound bath. I do vocal toning through the chakras, and that helps create self-awareness for people, and other techniques that I do.
It sounds like such an incredible experience. And anybody who comes to see you must have a huge process of awakening initiated from that experience. I feel like you're an activator, and you're probably, because I think that anyone who goes to a sound bath for the first time, for example, who's never experienced it, and they might walk away going, oh, that was lovely, but they don't understand that on a deeper level, those vibrations have started to entrain with their chakras or their energy and literally shift them. Have you ever found that someone has a cathartic experience, or I guess they get thrown into some kind of I don't know, activation, or they're faced with their issues because they've been shaken up by the work?
Yeah. I was just having this conversation last night with some of my sound healing students. When you're holding a group space, you never know who's walking in. And this is why I developed the sonic beam method, which is a very well balanced sound bath that in most cases won't overactivate people. It's just enough of each type of sound, which I think of it as medicinal. It's medicine. So you have like your dosage of sound that is that unfolds throughout a sound meditation, at least in my type of sound baths. Um, and in general, what I found is if people have never done any kind of work ever, and they have a lot of anxiety, and this is their first time actually relaxing, because the sounds take you there. And I don't want to I don't want to call it a cheat sheet, but the sounds take you to that meditative state. So we could talk about the brainwaves really fast. When you're attending a sound bath, you relax definitely into alpha brainwave state, which is relaxed and awake. And the more you can let go, you'll drop into theta brainwave state. And that is where you could do the most healing. And that's a deep meditative state where you can get the cool vision, the visuals. Some people really get some wild visuals, kind of dreamlike. And for many people, they don't allow themselves to relax that much. And when you drop into that state, the brain, that monkey mind, the ego turns off automatically. And when I talk about the ego, I'm talking about the part of you that's always analyzing, criticizing, making excuses. And when I say making excuses, that's like not looking at what's going on in your life, or denying your emotions and just kind of burying them. So in a sound bath, when people are put into the state and they're not used to dealing with their emotions, they don't have any form of self-regulation, this is where they can have a big emotional release. They could just start crying. Maybe some pain might come to the surface that they've been not, feeling. I like to say you have to feel it to heal it, really, whether it's emotional or.
That is, amen. That is the truth.
Yeah. So it happens every once in a while. I had one client that a friend of hers brought her to one of my sound baths, and she had a crazy emotional experience. And we talked after. She's like, I just want to go home and cry all night. And I'm like, what's wrong with that? Like, do it. You need to cry. Like, let yourself cry. There's no judgment. Like, why are you judging yourself so much? And she came back again. I ended up working with her privately, and we did the heart math, and she was on a cocktail of meds and she wanted to get off of them. So I helped her create self-regulation practice so she could start easing off her meds. And, because that's the other thing with Western medicine, like they give you a pill. don't teach you how to evolve and grow and learn how to get to know yourself. They just pills, and there's so many other ways to have this human experience. And so this was I really loved this story with her. Like, we did the heart math and the vocal toning practice together. And she eventually, she worked with her therapist to get off, and she wanted to look into some other alternative therapies. And she was able to, I think after her third sound bath, she was able to finally sit through the whole sound bath without having crazy emotions. And then she started getting into breath work. It was just so beautiful to
That must have been
it
so rewarding for
unfold.
you.
And there's several
Yeah.
stories like that. And I love it. I really do, because I know it's helped me so much. And when I could show people the way that there are,
Mm.
you know,
So, do you experience less anxiety? Do you find that you're in a much more relaxed state on a daily basis simply because you're constantly working with these tools?
yeah, I mean, I definitely have my moments. Like, we're all human, but I do love that because I have these tools. I definitely don't have anxiety that I used to have back in the day. Or uh I have this history of putting on these big events, and which is very, very stressful. And I don't know how I do what I do. It's resilience in the end, because you do have to put yourself aside when you're holding space for a community. And as an event producer as well, not only as a facilitator, but there's a lot that comes up. And so what I've learned is, what is my capacity, and what can I handle? How many events can I do at a time? When I'm in it, if there's a stressful moment, I know just to trust the universe, that if something's not working out, instead of kicking and screaming, just find a different way to make things happen. And I have a mindset that there are no problems, there are only solutions.
And do you think that's developed over time because you've been able to access this more relaxed state? So you actually are not jumping into fight or flight and a reactive place, but you can actually now cultivate this mindset.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, I just, it's a practice. Even with all the tools in the world, like, we're all going to have a moment where we're human. And I think being forgiving when these moments happen, and nobody's perfect, I think that's just really important. And it was really interesting. I had a really intense experience during the beginning of COVID, where I actually experienced a shootout. and
Oh,
uh, and
wow.
this was really interesting, for me, having all my tools at my fingertips. I literally, probably, I walked into a drugstore, and like a minute or two later, there's a shootout right in front of the drugstore. And had I not turned to the right up the aisle and turned to the left, I could have been in the line of
Line of
fire,
fire.
and ran into the back, with this other woman. We were hiding in the back, and like waiting for everything to settle, and and had to like walk out of there and step over. Unfortunately, two men lost their lives, and I had to experience this. And that I hadn't had that level of trauma in a while. And to witness myself going through this, and God, even just talking about it, I haven't talked about this in a long time, but I think maybe it is a learning, a good share for learning. um uh I had to be gentle with myself for a couple days. And because not only, it's one thing to see something, but the sound, as a sound healer, I'm sensitive to sound
Mm.
vibration, like hearing that pow pow pow, and the whole building vibrating of gunshots. And at the time, there were a lot of fireworks going on in the neighborhood. And I had this moment where I looked up. I'm like, that was loud. Was that a firework, or was that an actual gunshot? And when I saw the sales clerk, running for her life, that's when I ran for my life. So it was just interesting to witness how I had to process the sound imprint of the experience, the emotional imprint, the visual imprint of, having to see what I saw. Um, And I immediately knew somebody who did trauma work and somatic work, and he did a session with me over the phone, and that was huge. Um, like I knew exactly, I'm like, okay, I know what tools, what I need to do to recover from this. And I had to not tell the story too much. Because every time you tell a story, especially anything traumatic, you're reliving and giving that vibration life. So you got to get to a point where it's one thing to talk about it, to process it, but at some point you got to say, okay, I'm done with this. It's an experience. It happened. It's over with now. So
And not identify yourself with it.
exactly. And I think in the past, even like anything that happened in my life, I would talk about it, because it was so impactful on me. But now I'm like, okay, how many times do I have to talk about something? That's not being present. You're living in the past.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for sharing that really powerful story.
yeah, that was a wild one.
Yeah.
I'm like,
But it's shown you though how, because you understand trauma, you understand vibration, you understand how the body keeps score, you knew immediately to seek the help that would help you release that so that you didn't store it and you didn't take it on. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Mental health is about how quickly you can come back to homeostasis. It's not that you're never going to fall off track. It's just how quickly you can come back.
right. And in that moment, when it all happened and I ran to the back, it was really interesting because there's the other woman that I met in the back of the drugstore, and we ran together to protect ourselves. She immediately was like in the back room of the drugstore. She's reaching for something to protect herself. I think she found like a X-Acto knife for like opening packages. Like she had that ready in her hand. And I'm looking at her, my heartbeat is racing. And I knew immediately to start doing the breathing technique from that I learned in heart math. But even doing the breathing work, I just couldn't believe how intense that flight, in that type of situation, how crazy, the heart rate gets. And
How jacked up your system
yeah,
is with
it
the
was really,
adrenaline.
really wild. And we
Mm.
locked ourselves in the bathroom and we were waiting until it all settled. And I just sat there, and she's like, I gotta call my family. And I'm like, I just gotta breathe.
Yes. You're like, let me just breathe and
Yeah.
center myself.
So I was just
Yeah.
grateful that I had these tools at my fingertips, and still it took a couple more days and even, a couple weeks to let the body settle from that level. But I want people to know that life, we're gonna have all kinds of experiences, and um, we have tools, and we
Mm.
just have to learn about them and how we could move through. That's what it's all about. How do we move through things? Can we process it quickly and keep moving forward and be resilient? And not everyone understands that, that how to process it in the moment so it doesn't impact you for a long time after. So
Yeah, and I think that was a really beautiful example you just gave us of the way both of you two women reacted who were locked in the same room. She was reaching outward. I've got to call my family. I've got to reach externally. And you were reaching inward. I just need to breathe. I just need to center myself. And there isn't anything wrong with reaching for support when you need it. But I think that when you're disconnected from yourself, you don't realize that the first place you need to return to is yourself, is inward, and then you reach out. It's when you're looking for 100% of your safety and security outside of yourself, that's when you come into trouble. But these are the tools, these beautiful gifts that you give everybody with your sound baths, with your heart math, and with your breathing techniques. These are the tools that help people come back to themselves. Yeah, so I wanted to wrap up by talking about the most phenomenal experience I had with you at one of your events, which you've been speaking about, out at a Malibu ranch under the stars in this gorgeous landscape with sound healers galore everywhere. At every corner, there were people with their gongs, with their bowls. It was the most impacting sound bath I think I've ever had. And I think it's a testament to where you've come in your career to be able to not only facilitate that, but actually be the person who is to organize it and bring it all together and be the holder of all of that space. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That was such a beautiful description. Yes, since the pandemic hit, we were, we had to get creative how to gather people where they feel safe. And even though I actually was, we were doing some outdoor sound baths up in the Malibu Mountains before COVID hit. And here in California, there's only a couple months that we could do it before it gets too cold. And so as soon as the warmer months hit, I'm like, okay, let's go find a beautiful place. And, I wanted to find a property that was private and then had beautiful nature, because that's what people needed after, everything that we've been going through, because nature is medicine as well. And so, at this point, my trainings, I've done quite a few. And so I'm bringing all my students in to help. And when you're outdoors, you do need more instruments and more hands on deck, because you don't have the four walls to create a resonance chamber. So that's why I have a much larger team.
I mean, yes, I do see what went into that, and I just want to acknowledge that, but also thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and your grace.
Oh, thank you. I'm so grateful and honored that you invited me, and you're a sound healer too. So you've been practicing yourself. So.
I mean, I bought my bowls from you. Thank you so much for helping me with that, because at that point, I didn't even realize that I thought if you just purchased them individually, it would be okay. I didn't realize they had to be in tune with each other. I mean, it makes so much sense now, but it's amazing the journey of understanding that you go on when you decide to step onto a path like that.
Yeah, it can get technical for sure. So, yeah. But, I think this is what the world needs. This is the beautiful part about what we're doing, is that the more in tune we are vibrationally, the better world we can create. And also, connecting deeper to our heart center, and, just welcoming the shifts that need to happen, because the world is constantly changing. And, and this is like, actually, maybe we can end it like with this. I think the greatest teaching in sound healing is learning how to shift frequencies and how to find flow through change.
I hope this episode has inspired you to keep going on what can sometimes be a tough road to inner peace and true happiness. If you want to dive deeper into what we talked about today, go to thehealingcocoon.co for show notes and all things personal growth. And don't forget, if you're loving The Healing Cocoon, then put that love into action and subscribe, rate and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. And until next time, my friends, let's rise and shine together.